The year? It's been almost a decade since World War II ended and Hitler was dead. The world was healing, and cheap entertainment was now having to find its footing in a new world with no need for heroes. Imagine being a kid this year. October, precisely. The kids at your school have been bringing in these magazines in their backpacks to show around. You see a few action comics and young men, but one magazine piques your interest. Before I show you this comic, don't expect anything crazy. I don't want you to be disappointed with the reveal. This is Superman's pal Jimmy Olsen, issue 1. See? I told you it was nothing to look at. Now, of course, today, you may not buy it, either because of the look of the comic, or because you know the writing underneath isn't as polished or exciting as modern-day comics. But take a look again. You're looking at the beginning of a series of comics that would end in 1974. Yeah, Jimmy Olsen, a Superman side character, had his own series of adventures that lasted for 20 years. 163 issues total. Now this is, of course, the time of superhero stories kind of dying out, and the more traditional teen comics came in, i.e. love stories and anything teen humor like Archie. Jimmy's different. He, of course, had the generic romance story attributes with love interest Lucy Lane, Lois Lane's sister, and he had the humor that kids and teens were looking for at the time. But what made him different was because he had something none of them had. A world full of superheroes. This world gave him a link to the wacky and insane world of comics, like Batman wears a rainbow to save the day, as well as, and I am quoting the synopsis of Superman Volume 1, Issue 107, Lois Lane and Clark Kent interview a master barber who claims to have cut a lock of Superman's hair. Wild stuff. But come on, have you read a comic from the 50s? I bet you tried, and after a few comics you rolled your eyes and just skipped a few decades to reach anything modern enough to intrigue you. But again, I feel like Jimmy Olsen is different once more. This guy is more than just a sidekick or an Archie ripoff. I'm not going to say he was a deep character at the time, or misunderstood. Comics for this decade were kept to a routine of cliches and bad dialogue and slim to none character improvements. Jimmy Olsen, however, took the cliches and the overdone marketing and turned the valves up to a breaking point. What I'm about to show you is the madness Jimmy Olsen brought upon DC Comics during his reign of terror. Remember this little first issue I showed you? This shit's fucking boring. Jimmy does the same thing 3 times for all 3 stories, so let's just skip a few issues to show you what I'm talking about. In Superman's Pal, Jimmy Olsen number 98, the issue depicts Jimmy Olsen marrying an ape. Also, Superman is supposedly the local witch doctor and has the authority to legalize a human-on-ape marriage. Now, without trying to get myself terminated by showing images of this comic, let's have a quick look at what the fuck they were cooking with this. You may or may not know that back in the 50s, 60s, and 70s, gorillas, apes, and monkeys were in practically every single comic book until they just fired everyone. Almost every single line of comic books, may it be something like Superman, or Batman, or even Wonder Woman, Jimmy Olsen was not spared of this marketing craze. Because if you, as a kid in the 50s, saw an ape, your ape mind would go ballistic and buy the issue without realizing how stupid it is. By the way, this ape was actually once a man, and now his mind is in an ape body. He was also a member of the IRA. He also served in the First War. That's the thing about old comics. Want to add something that will make people invest in your character? Just slap something on him until it sticks, and then spread that shit everywhere. Now, of course, the heroes fought the gorillas. Sometimes the gorillas were the heroes and fought even more gorillas. But Jimmy, of course, made it interesting. Like I said, he married a fucking gorilla. And it actually happened, by the way. It wasn't a fluke or a joke. He married that gorilla and spent the night with it. Couldn't stand to be kept away just for the day from your body. Wouldn't Of course, Jimmy had a divorce, but instead of the paperwork, he just had the gorilla throw him off the side of the cliff and called that divorce. Hello, Superman. I thought you were a respected witch doctor. Does the sanctity of marriage mean nothing to you? I mean, yeah, the universe restarted like 5 times after that, so, you know, I guess the marriage isn't legally binding anymore. Now let's call it how it is. You see it, right? The main issue behind the series. But let me show you a few issue covers to show you what I mean. Here's issue number 32. Superman arrests Jimmy because a Jupiter scientist made him look like an alien. Okay, somehow that's a bit tame. How about issue number 41? This one seems to have Jimmy with 6 arms. Whoa! Superman looks at Jimmy as though he understands the pain of having 6 arms, as though he might have had, at one point, 6 arms. Look at that million-yard stare he has. Shit's creepy, man. Here, I'll show you one more issue. Number 118, Jimmy becomes a hippie, and he also protests Superman. You see it, right? How about I skip to the last issue of where Superman has to save Jimmy Olsen? Sounds like an ordinary story. For Superman, in every cover of Jimmy Olsen, Superman either takes a little spot to the side for a joke or takes center stage to practically look like the main character. Now this is of course because DC wanted to squeeze Superman for all he had. I mean, the character had a radio show, a TV special here and there. The guy was an icon in America, and any excuse to pump more Superman out was necessary for DC at a time where comics weren't so popular anymore. And Jimmy was not alone. Four years later, after the success of Jimmy Olsen's comics, Lois Lane got her own series called Superman's Girlfriend, Lois Lane. For the first time, Lois Lane was given a spotlight of her own. Let's see her first issue. Oh wow, look at that. He's right there, like he knows she has a chance at relevance, but he can't let his own fame slip. I see right through you, Superman. But I don't blame the editors or writers for doing this. The Superman was, of course, an icon, like I said, but an icon for a genre that was on its last leg, and DC needed to have hits after hits, or they were in deep shit. Putting Superman in every issue could solidify at least some return of profit. In 1962, Lois Lane was the 3rd best-selling comic book in the United States, somehow beating both Superman and Superboy. Jimmy, however, was running far behind in 1970 as it was the lowest selling in the line of publications. Jack Kirby even took a crack at it, but soon left in 1972. Maybe I should have a cutout of Superman with me at all times so I can have better stories. Take him with me to the park, maybe. Maybe we can go on a date to the zoo. Take him with me to the cardboard cutting contest. No! Cut out Superman! At the end of both runs, a new comic series started right after called The Superman Family, and it became an amalgamation for Superman and his supporting cast of characters. At least Lois and Jimmy didn't have the Supergirl fate lasting only 10 issues before being pushed into a supporting role, because no one is allowed to outstage the boy in blue. Jimmy Olsen and other comics like this pushed crazy ideas out to the general audience like a bake sale and proved to be memorable for decades. Stories like Batman the Long Halloween and The Death of Superman go down in history as some of the most impactful comics to hit store shelves. They survived because they were good stories, while Jimmy survived by cliches and simplified stories. A feat like that is not normal. As a society, we hate bad things, I think, right? You hate bad things, I hate bad things. So then why does something like Jimmy Olsen being the combined Batman-Superman as he fights dudes on floating discs stick to our minds and plague us with remembering this crazy time in comic history? Complicated answer? Because these stories are perfect time capsules. Look up a random Jimmy Olsen comic and you'll see a perfect example of the 50s and 60s trying to grab your attention. Superman already had it, while Jimmy crawled for it. Simple answer? Jimmy fucked a gorilla! Thank you for watching this video. This is a bit different from the usual stuff, but this is a short video to hold some of you over for the next big video. And if it was good, then maybe tell me in a comment if you want me to Maybe talk about more comic book stuff that's weird and junk. Also, I wrote a superhero book. If you want to know about it, I have links down in the description. It helps support me and my encouragement of making videos way faster. And, you know, I don't know, maybe while you're here, watch another one of my videos. I don't know. I'm not your mother or anything. Stop asking me to be. I am a gorilla. A man that transformed into a gorilla. But, you know, maybe we can get married.